You find yourself here adrift, not because you searched, but because you stumbled. A quiet hum of dissatisfaction has grown into a low roar. The days blur, each a pale imitation of the last. A gnawing emptiness, a pervasive numbness, a sense of being profoundly stuck. Perhaps it's the echo of a forgotten promise or the weight of a decision unmade. The world outside spins on, indifferent, while within, a stillness that feels less like peace and more like decay. This is not a stopping point. This is a threshold. You weren't trying to connect, you were trying not to disappear. But what happens when even your silence becomes performative? In the next section, we'll expose the fear behind stillness. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this. Now let's keep going. The false gravity of shame. It's a peculiar science, how it pulls us down, pinning us to the earth of our perceived failures. We believe it to be a consequence of our actions, a just penalty for missteps. But what if shame is not a consequence, but a foundation? What if it's the very bedrock upon which we build our lives, a lie we've internalized so deeply it feels like truth? It dictates our posture, our voice, our very breath, keeping us huddled in the shadows, afraid to cast a shape that might be judged. This is the invisible architecture of our self-imprisonment. The approval you chase is just a mask for a childhood void. But what happens when the mask stops working? In the next part, we explore identity collapse through the lens of abandonment. Echoes in the tower. Imagine standing in a vast, empty structure. The walls rise impossibly high, crafted from silence and solidified regret. This is where you retreat, not by choice, but by instinct. It's a sanctuary built from necessity, a place where the world outside cannot touch you, but also where you cannot reach the world. Within these resonating chambers, your authentic voice is muffled, replaced by the clang of your own anxieties. The tower promises safety, but it is a gilded cage, its stones carved with the memory of a gaze that never truly saw you. You didn't say yes because you cared, you said yes because you were afraid to lose your role. But what is left when the role dies? The next section reveals the grief of becoming real. The invisible parent. They cast a long, undeniable shadow, not necessarily through malicious intent, but through absence. A void where guidance should have been, a silence where affirmation was needed. This specter, never fully present, becomes the unintended architect of our inner world. We spend our lives trying to appease a phantom, to earn the approval of someone who was never truly there to give it. Their unmet expectations become our own, forming the invisible bars of our self-imposed prison. It is a haunting that shapes our deepest fears. The past is not dead, it is not even past. It lives on in the ghosts of those who raised us, unseen. What happens when we realize the echo we are trying to satisfy is just us? We move now to the mirror of identity. The mirror of identity. We stand before it, and what do we see? Not ourselves, not really. We see the reflection of what we thought we needed to be. A carefully constructed facade, pieced together from the fragments of received wisdom and the desperate pleas of an unheeded child. This image is not our truth, but a survival mechanism, a meticulously crafted disguise to navigate a world that felt too harsh, too unforgiving. It's a mask we've worn for so long, it's become indistinguishable from our own skin. But what if the face staring back is not you, but a ghost? In the next section, we find the sacred loops and profane gods that bind us. Sacred loops, profane gods. We are drawn into cycles, patterns of behavior that feel both familiar and fated. These are not random occurrences, but the echoes of ancient rituals performed in the silent theater of the psyche. We worship at altars built from our own ingrained beliefs, offerings of our authenticity laid at the feet of deities we ourselves have sculpted from fear and longing. These gods offer a semblance of order, a predictable narrative, but they demand a currency that is far too high, the surrender of our own divine spark. You are not living your life, you are repeating a performance. What happens when the curtain falls? In the next part, we will explore how approval itself becomes a deceptive offering. Approval as altar. We build temples to the imagined gaze of others, offering our every move as a sacrifice. The desire for validation, the quenching thirst for a nod of acceptance, becomes a guiding star, leading us not toward authenticity, but toward conformity. It's a desperate dance, a constant negotiation with an audience that may not even be watching. Each small act of compliance, each unspoken truth swallowed, is another stone laid at the altar of desired approval, a foundation built on sand. We believe we are seeking love, but we are actually seeking refuge. When the sanctuary of approval is revealed as a mirage, what remains? The next section illuminates the inner saboteur as our unwitting priest. The inner saboteur as priest. There's a figure within, an ordained minister of doubt, who presides over the temple of our deepest anxieties. This priest whispers, not in judgment, but in what sounds like pragmatic advice. It points out every flaw, every potential misstep, not to hurt, but to protect us from the perceived dangers of vulnerability. It is the guardian of our cage, ensuring we never stray too far from the familiar confines of self-sabotage, convincing us that this suffering is, in fact, necessary for our survival. This priest tells us to stay hidden, but what if the greatest danger is to remain unseen? We now turn to the mirror wound in intimacy. The mirror wound in intimacy. When we enter the sacred space of connection, we bring not only ourselves, but the reflections of all our unmet needs and unresolved pains. The other person becomes a mirror, but the glass is warped, showing us distorted images of ourselves, of what we lack, of what we desperately need. This distortion fuels insecurity, making genuine intimacy feel terrifyingly risky. The fear of being truly seen and then rejected creates a chasm between who we are and who we long to be, a wound that festers in the fertile ground of our closest relationships. You don't seek a partner, you seek a reflection of what you believe you are missing. What happens when the mirror breaks? We descend into the hall of names, into the heart of the orphan. The orphan in the hall of names. We walk through a vast, echoing hall where every name is etched in stone, imbued with lineage and belonging. Yet we feel an absence, a void where our own name should resonate with inherent worth. We are the orphans of this hall, those who never received the true naming, the fundamental affirmation that anchors one to being. We search for a designation, a label, a role that will grant us entry, that will finally declare us as substantial, as seen, as deserving of existence. To be named is to be given a place, but what if the true name is the one that requires no external validation? In the next section, we confront the agony of being chosen, which often means the betrayal of our own deepest wound. To be chosen is to betray the wound. In the desperate search for belonging, we often find ourselves chosen, welcomed into a fold that promises acceptance. But this choosing is a double-edged sword. To be embraced by another often means compromising the very essence of our unique pain, the deep wounds that, while agonizing, are also deeply familiar. We betray the truth of our suffering by adopting a new identity that fits the needs of our chosen community, a performance of wholeness that silences the authentic voice of our inner orphan. We are given a garment of belonging, but it feels like a shroud. What happens when the costume of acceptance is shed? In the next part, we witness the death of the inner pilgrim. The death of the inner pilgrim. The pilgrim embarked on a journey, seeking not a destination, but a deeper understanding of the self. This quest was fueled by a persistent ache, a spiritual hunger that drove them forward through trials and uncertainty. But somewhere along the path, the will to seek faltered. The terrain became too arduous, the doubts too loud. The pilgrims ceased their movement, not in arrival, but in resignation. The inner compass, once vibrant, has fallen silent, leaving behind a landscape of stilled intentions and unexplored depths. The path has dissolved into a dead end. What is left when the journey ends before it has truly begun? We enter the silence that binds. The silence that binds. It is a silence that is not empty, but full of unspoken words, unexpressed emotions, and a profound sense of things left undone. This silence is not a passive state, but an active force, a tapestry woven from avoidance and fear. It holds us captive, its threads strong and unyielding, preventing us from reaching out, from articulating the vast landscape of our inner world. It is the quiet prison we inhabit, where our true voices are held hostage, unable to break free. This silence is a weight, but what if the heaviest chains are forged from what we refuse to acknowledge? In the next section, we examine the Gnostic betrayal of ascension. The Gnostic betrayal of ascension. Imagine a profound ascent, a striving for a higher truth, a spiritual awakening. But what if this aspiration is not toward liberation, but towards a gilded cage, a false heaven built on denial? The Gnostic myth warns of this deception, of powers that create a flawed cosmos, trapping souls in a cycle of striving for an illusion. True ascension, in this context, is not reaching for an external light, but recognizing the divine already present within, a truth obscured by the very systems we believe will save us. You sought to escape the world, but you only managed to build a more sophisticated prison. When the promise of heaven proves to be another form of exile, the ultimate question remains. In our final section, we ask, who are you without this worship? Who are you without this worship? Look away from the altars, step down from the towers, put aside the masks. The deities you've served, the roles you've embodied, the borrowed identities you've worn like armor, they are fading. What remains when the echoes of external validation fall silent? Who is the person that exists in the stark, unadorned space of their own being? The answer is not found in reflection, but in the profound courage to face the emptiness and discover the self that was there all along, waiting to be truly known, not worshipped. Now that concludes this video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.